I am so sick of seeing Trump propaganda and talking points being pushed by the mainstream media. Now, we expect that sort of thing from Fox News and right-wing platforms and social media, but I am beyond fed up with seeing it in the mainstream media. And I'm going to give you just one example. I was scrolling through TikTok a little while ago, and I came across a video of Jonathan Karl on ABC talking with George Stephanopoulos on their Sunday morning show. And they were talking about Donald Trump's hate rally at Madison Square Garden. And Jonathan Karl was going on and on and on about Trump's crowd and the size of the crowd, how many people came to his hate rally. And he wasn't saying it to denounce that there are this many hateful people. No, it was to be in awe of Donald Trump's ability to draw these huge crowds. And I can't play you the video, I wish I could, but they were playing scenes from the rally as they were talking, and it had music in it, and I know that if I put it up, YouTube will nail me with a copyright strike, so I can't show you the clip. But here's some of the things that Jonathan Karl was saying. He was going on and on about it. He said it was packed, and all these people, Trump has created a movement, and no one else could do what Donald Trump has done in drawing so many people, and on and on and on and on. Now, that is utterly absurd. Yes, there were a lot of people at Madison Square Garden. And here's what bothers me about this, before I explain why it's so absurd, is that Donald Trump is obsessed with his crowd sizes. He has been from the beginning. He lies about the size of his crowds constantly. So that's a main Trump talking point. And here, Jonathan Karl is pushing that Trump line. Now, here's why it's so ridiculous to make such a big deal about the fact that he sold out Madison Square Garden. First of all, keep in mind, and one of the things he was saying, by the way, is that he drew this kind of crowd in New York City, which is a liberal city. And oh my God, that he could do this in New York. There's no other Democrat in the country who could do this. That's hogwash. But anyway, I grew up in Southern Connecticut, about a half an hour from New York City. I am well aware of how many people live in that area. Obviously, New York City is the biggest city in the country, but it's not just New York City proper. It's the entire surrounding area. So I asked ChatGTP to tell me how many people live within a 3-hour drive of New York City. Because that's nothing for these Trump cultists to drive 3 hours to go to an event. We know for a fact that there are people who literally follow him all over the country. They're groupies. I mean, it's a cult. And we know any given Trump event, there are tons of people who have been to literally hundreds of Trump rallies. They follow him everywhere. So going 3 hours, if they know their orange God King Savior is going to be in New York City, driving 3 hours to go see him is nothing for these people. So that's why I asked ChatGTP how many people live within a 3-hour drive. Now, within just the New York metropolitan area, which is New York and the suburbs of New Jersey and Southern Connecticut, we're talking around 20 million people. When you take that out to a 3-hour driving radius, it's 30 million people. Now, how many people can Madison Square Garden hold? I looked that up. 19,500 is the maximum capacity of Madison Square Garden. So we're dealing with 30 million people within a 3-hour radius. How many of those people do you think are Republicans and Trump-supporting independents? Out of 30 million. Let's just be overly generous and say that only 30% of that 30 million people within a 3-hour driving radius support Trump. Only 30%. Now, we know it's more than that. Even New York City, the vote is never only 30% for the Republicans. So it's actually, Trump has higher support than that for sure. But let's just say it's only 30%. We're still talking 9 million people. 9 million freaking people for a venue that's 19. So the point is, do you think out of 3 million people, Donald Trump can draw 19,000 people to Madison Square Garden? Is it that so hard to believe? Is this something we should be in awe of? Especially when you consider the fact that Donald Trump has been promoting this event for weeks. I've known about it for weeks. He might have been promoting it for longer than that, I don't know, but I've at least known about it for weeks now. Because this was his big homecoming. See, Donald Trump is very insecure. He desperately has always wanted to be beloved in New York City. New York City hates his guts, but he's always wanted the approval of New York City. So why is he campaigning in New York? He's not going to win New York. It's all vanity. He wants to have this big homecoming because when you live in New York, playing the Garden is a big deal. So he wanted to sell out the Garden in his hometown, this big homecoming. It's all about ego and vanity. That's why he did it. And he's been promoting this event for weeks. So, I mean, sorry, I'm not impressed that he managed to get 19,500 people to Madison Square Garden when he has been advertising this literally for weeks. You want to really see a big crowd? Here is the Kamala Harris rally in Houston over the weekend, or on Friday night. 30,000 people. Take a look at this. Okay, that rally had 30,000 people. Trump at Madison Square Garden had 19,000 people, give or take. Donald Trump was promoting his hate rally for weeks. Kamala Harris, they had just announced that rally days before, and she gets 30,000 people. Is Jonathan Karl going to go on the Sunday show and fawn over Kamala Harris and say, oh, Kamala Harris has created a movement. Nobody can do this. And by the way, where was her rally? In Texas, in deep red Texas. You know, Trump does it in New York. Oh, nobody else could draw a crowd. No Republican could draw a crowd like this in New York City. Is he going to say, oh, no Democrat could draw a crowd like this in Texas? Of course not. This is what they do. They feed right into the Trump narrative, yet they don't do it on the other side. I am just so sick of it. And here's the thing too. Donald Trump is not drawing crowds like this everywhere he goes. Like I said, he had been advertising this for weeks, if not longer. Most of his rallies aren't even sold out. Okay, we've seen it over and over. If you've been paying attention to his various rallies on the campaign, he's not selling these places out. In fact, a lot of times, they have so few people that whatever the venue is, they have to like cut it in half. They put up, temporary partitions. They put up, curtains to cut off half of the venue to crowd everyone in one side of the auditorium, wherever they are, to make it look like it's more crowded than it is. And they make sure that they only allow the camera from the media pool to be tight on him at the podium where there's people crowded in right behind him. But they never allow the media to show the rest of the venue. But people have cell phones, and so they take pictures and they take video and they upload it to social media. And if you look at that stuff, most of these rallies Trump's holding aren't anywhere close to capacity. For example, he was just in Georgia. Take a look at this pathetic showing.
Importantly, at taxpayer expense, by the way. She lied about working at McDonald's. She never worked at McDonald's. On top of all this, in conclusion, take a look. She wants to turn our military woke. I don't think that's happening. Go ahead.
And this has been repeated over and over. He was just at Penn State not long ago. Same thing. I saw videos out of that rally, you know, half empty venue there. So, you know, do you ever see the mainstream media report on Donald Trump's half empty rallies? No. But he draws 19,000 people to his hate rally in New York that he had been promoting for weeks, and they act like it's the biggest crowd ever assembled in the history of the universe, and it's proof that Donald Trump has this massive groundswell of support. Yet Kamala Harris in Texas, with only a couple days' notice, gets 30,000 people to come out for her. They don't give it the same coverage at all. I'm just so freaking sick of it. By the way, I'm going to do a video later today. Fingers crossed I'll be able to get to it. I'm going to explain to you why I believe Kamala Harris is going to win this race. She's going to win. Okay? I'm pretty convinced of that based on the data, which I'm going to explain. So if I'm sure, like me, you're seeing all kinds of polls that are making you nervous, you're seeing Trump propaganda everywhere you look, ignore all of that. Okay? There is no momentum shift towards Trump, even in the polls. It's all a lie, okay? So we're going to talk about that. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.